All right, welcome to the 5 a.m. grind. Paris, what's up, man?
Not that much, man. What's up with you?
It's good. It's good. I see we're matching today. We're both wearing green. But so, by the way, if you notice us wearing the same T-shirt in the next episode, it's because we record 2 episodes at a time and then release one at a time. Exactly. We release one episode on a Tuesday, the other one on a Thursday, but we record them at the same time. Apologize.
Kind of like the Shark Tank, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Kevin O'Leary wears the same suit all the time. It's a bit like Shark Tank. And we're trying to be efficient with our time.
Yeah.
That's what it is. All right, so for this podcast, we've got another packed episode, and I thought we'd cover the second part of our Canadian real estate podcast. So just going over some of the questions that we covered in the first episode and then continuing the discussion. So the questions we wanted to answer in this episode about Canadian real estate are as follows. Number 1, how are Canadians affording these crazy real estate prices? Number 2, is immigration driving the price of real estate up? Number 3, we'll talk about some of the incentives in the real estate market. 4, talk about some of the second order effects. And 5, where do we go from here? Again, a lot of things to cover. We'll try to cover as much as we can. We'll see how the discussion goes and then take it from there. So Horace, one thing about the crazy prices we're seeing right now, and it's a question I'm sure everybody has on their minds, is how are people affording this stuff? Like, how do you afford it? I'll give you some stats.
Yeah.
For you to think about as you answer the question. The median after-tax income in Canada, median after-tax income is $63,000. $63,000. The median after-tax income for families is $105,000. And then in Toronto specifically, median after-tax income is $78,000. So call it's about $80K-ish across the board after-tax incomes, families, individuals, Toronto, blah, 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 all that stuff. So $80K. However, the average price of a home is what, $800,000 is what we said. So 10x, 10 times the average income. How are people affording this stuff?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of baby boomers that are helping their kids out.
Yeah. So wealth transfer?
So then your parents are kind of taking out money from their house and helping their kids buy a house. Also, I don't know, man. It's just because affordability is so much better with lower interest rates.
Yeah.
People are buying, they're paying as much as they can, and they're kind of not really starting off anywhere different. They're still starting off with a condo. It's not like people can now afford more and go into a house.
Yeah.
And then I feel like at least they'll save up some equity, and when they want to upsize, by the time they want to upsize, it's like there's the fact that now they've got equity in their house. They're also looking at lower interest rates when they're upsizing. So whereas before, if they were borrowing at 3%, now they could be borrowing at 1.3, right? And so now you can borrow so much more, so you're willing to pay so much more. There's that. There's also, I feel, just not enough stock, I guess. The supply is down.
Actually, funny enough, so on that particular topic on stock, I did want to cover something. But I'd want to say the way people are affording this is really just like you said. It's either a wealth transfer from the boomer generation to the current generation, because let's be honest, they've done really well in the real estate market. A lot of the boomer generation probably bought their houses at like $200,000, $300,000. They're sitting on $1 million homes today. So it's easy to do an equity takeout and then help your kids, right? Yeah. Put a down payment together. There's some people as well, and people sort of don't appreciate this, is the other aspect of it. And that's people who've been in the market long enough. Yeah. And if you've been in the market long enough, you've accumulated a significant amount of equity that you can take and then roll into a new house and then upsize, etc. And one of the key drivers of real estate prices is, I was reading a Bloomberg article, and this is probably one of the best articles I've seen cover Canadian real estate, and it was saying exactly what you just said, and that is that for the past 10 years, and I'll link the article in the description of this podcast, you can read it if you'd like. For the past 10 years, Canada has not produced enough detached homes that it would require to support its population. We've been producing a lot of condos and building a lot of condos and stuff, but not enough detached homes. And Canadians are going after detached homes like crazy. They don't go towards condos, they go towards detached homes. So we haven't been building any, and that's what Canadians want, because everybody's been sold that Canadian dream of a white picket fence, a big lawn, and a big house. And people are just going after that asset class, and there aren't enough, and the prices are just going up like crazy.
But in general, I mean, I would not trust a condo. The condos don't appreciate as much, but also there's a huge element of a condo that's outside of your hands, which is the condo fee. You don't know how it's being maintained. You don't know how, like, what decisions everybody else is making. It's a board that makes it. The board's not sophisticated. Board's typically made up of homeowners, which have enough free time to be working at that board for free. And there's not going to be a lot of diligence involved. And so what I've seen is, at least, like, you have a lot of mismanagement of money, and then condo fees go up.
Yeah.
And when fees go up, it affects the appreciation of your condo. It doesn't go up as much, right? Because it chews into it. Because now when somebody's doing their affordability, they have to look at, like, the mortgage and the condo fee.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things as well that I read that this article covers, that for those of you who might read it, you might come to this as well, is that they're sort of trying to build, whoever is doing the urban planning for Toronto, and the builders and the developers, etc., they're trying to take Toronto to be more like a European city, where it's very common for families to live in condos.
Yeah.
And even in New York, it's the same, right? People in New York, very wealthy people in New York, live in condos. They have a home in the Hamptons, right?
Yeah.
Right. So they have a proper home. But in the city, they live in a condo, and that's become accepted. Toronto is slowly transitioning to become like that, to become a very urban-focused city, because people also want to live close to downtown, millennials, et cetera, et cetera. And to be honest with you, if you want to live downtown, like, there isn't any more space. You got to live in a condo. That's where you're gonna.
Well, I mean,
that's where you're gonna live.
New York, though, there's other things. There's, first of all, like, rent control and stuff like that, so people can find some nice places for.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's difficult, very difficult, but still, there's that. That maintains the city. I don't think there's any kind of rent control in our city.
No.
Right. No. There's also,
I think, older buildings or something, but nothing on condos.
So it creates, like, some kind of affordability within the city somewhere, arguably. The other thing is I mean, the affluent that are in New York City that have condos, they're not really like condos. Like, they're like 10,000 square feet. I'm getting a quarter of this building, right? Yeah. I'm getting all 4 floors or whatever it is, and it's like, it's completely different. I don't know if Toronto has those kind of condos downtown.
We don't have many,
right? But it's also because in New York City, you can't really buy a house. There's no houses there. Where are you going to go to buy a house? In Toronto, there's still, like, you can live in a house and in a reasonable time get to downtown Toronto. New York City, I feel like it's much difficult. You have to be, like, in Brooklyn or Yonkers, and then it's still, like, and those places have gone up. They're, like, pretty expensive themselves, right? But because people are going out and buying houses there. And the other thing is, New York City, I don't think it's like after COVID and everything, the rents are dropping. Some places are dropping as much as 20%. You have a lot of offices moving to Florida. Tax rates are better. People want to move out there. Housing is cheaper. All that stuff. Weather is better. So there is a push that I don't think New York's going to stay the same either. It just seems like Toronto was moving more towards, like, a New York, more like a Chicago, and I feel like now New York is kind of moving out of being a New York.
Yeah.
And so Toronto is, like, I think it's the same thing here. I think people are moving more out and getting houses because you can work from home.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how the trend, I guess, evolves. It'll be interesting to watch. One of the things about affordability that I did want to cover, though, which I think is an interesting trend, is that, yes, people get help from their parents. Yes, people save money. And I'm not saying there are people genuinely out there who save money and then bought a house or, been in the real estate market long enough. But there is one thing for sure. Our generation, when they buy a house, is stretching themselves and is literally putting everything that they have in a house. Yeah. So let's say you need to retire, you're 65 and you retire. A lot of what our generation will have to do in order to have money for their retirement is just sell their house. Because there's so much money tied up in it that they'll be like, in order for me to retire and have an income, I need to downsize, get some money to fund me into retirement. Yeah. Right? It's going to be an interesting predicament.
I feel like, and this is what concerns me the most. If you look at developing countries and developing economics, when you're a landlord, often enough you're not necessarily looking at ROI. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of land because it's inherited, and its social mobility is more difficult in developing countries. And so you rent out your properties, but you're like, they're just your properties. Whether you get like keep them or like rent them out or not, it's the same to you, because there's not a lot of debt on those properties.
Yeah.
So it's totally disproportionate in terms of the value of the land and how much you're renting it out for, right? And because there's a huge discrepancy between the haves and the have-nots, I feel like we're moving towards that same kind of route. Because there's an increasing, it doesn't make any sense for anyone to be able to buy a house and be able to pay it off. Like, you're going to be renting your entire life, but you're telling yourself you own it. So you're essentially like getting all the bad stuff with a house, which is you got to take care of the repairs, you got to do all of that, and you're kind of mentally restricting yourself to a location without the good side, which is any kind of wealth accumulation, just so you could tell yourself that you own a property. Yeah. And I feel like there's an increasing disconnect between the value and the price of the house and the rents that it can command.
Yeah.
So in the long run, I don't know.
I think we'll become a society of haves and have-nots to a certain extent. Like, the divide between rich and poor is going to increase.
Yeah. So it becomes, the other thing is also, I mean, it's so complicated now because all of our jobs now have become completely more commoditized as well. So if you can move those abroad, the incomes, there's a downward pressure on incomes.
There is.
Right?
There is,
and then all these
technology as well, let's be honest, replacing some jobs, etc.
And so there's more efficiencies, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. I feel like, and I think Jordan Peterson had a really good talk. He's a professor at U of T.
Yeah.
And I know he's a little bit controversial, but like, I mean, it's not like everything that he says is going to be incorrect. There's one part that I really thought fascinating. He said that like, typically if you look at like the IQ of a society, it's a bell curve.
Yeah.
And we're moving towards more of that last, like the bottom 10 percentile. The people who have lower IQs used to do just kind of more of the type of work that is kind of common. Right, like I guess desk or clerk or administrative stuff, right? The simplified administrative, and all of that is being replaced by tech, and you got to figure out where we're going to place these people in a population. So those low income jobs are disappearing as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things in society that are pushing that have and have not scenario.
Yeah. It's interesting. We're gonna see how it plays out. This is an interesting topic. I'd maybe want to cover in another podcast, but we'll move it along here. Okay. The other question I had, so number 2, was whether or not immigration is driving real estate prices up. And for this particular question, what I did was I pulled up StatsCan data, right, just to see what the trends were, and I looked at 3 things: the birth rates, so how many births we get per year in the country, how many deaths, and how much immigration. Right? I know it's a very crude way to look at this, but yeah, essentially the population, the way it would grow is you have people who are born, people die, and people come into the country. That's how you increase your population, right? So if you look at just births and deaths, they're about 300,000-ish births, 300,000 deaths. They about roughly cancel each other, right? And then every year we've got about 300,000 immigrants as well. So you could say that our population is growing because of immigration. But 300,000, over 30 million, and I know our population is 38 million, but 300,000 over 30 million is just 1%. 1%. Do you think that 1% is driving real estate prices up?
I mean, I think that last year there was not as many
2020, there was less.
Yeah,
but
there was less, and they're trying.
But the trend, honestly, and I pulled this data from StatsCan. I'm not sure. I'm assuming it's accurate, but it's like roughly 300,000 plus or minus a little bit. It's not. Yeah, we had a dip in 2020 for sure, but it's plus or minus.
Yeah,
the same
yeah.
sort of
I mean,
range.
but I don't like. So I don't think this recent bump is because of that.
Yeah.
But in general, I do think immigration has a upward kind of push towards prices because. Even though it's 1%, that 1% is concentrated on the bigger cities, right? So where we're seeing the increase in prices, like Toronto, Vancouver, right, Montreal, those areas is where it's like being pushed up. That's where the immigrants are coming, right? So that 1% 1% in relation to the population of the town that they're moving into is a lot more, right? That's one thing. Second thing, I don't think Canada gives out visas to like people, as bad as it sounds, who don't have money.
Yeah, we have a very selective immigration system.
So you're
We
like, I mean,
definitely
if you
do.
have like
We definitely do to a
investments
certain
anywhere, even in
extent.
the States, you have like 500,000 invest, they'll be like, all right, here
If
you
you're
go.
wealthy, they'll
Yeah.
allow you to come to the country. Correct.
So if you
Correct.
have money, then they're not bringing in the average person. They're bringing in highly educated people who have money.
Wealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To like
Yeah,
come in
yeah,
and
yeah.
invest.
And I mean, to be honest, anecdotally speaking, even though the stats don't show this, I don't know why, but I've seen it in like some neighborhoods. I live around the Richmond Hill neighborhood. My parents live there. I've seen it. It is very wealthy Asian immigrants who are able to afford some of these homes. And that's not to say, I'm not saying it's anything bad. Like, you've done well as an immigrant. You deserve to buy whatever it is that you can.
Yeah.
The world is your oyster to a certain extent, right? If you're successful, you worked hard, so be it. This is how society is. This is how capitalism is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't have to like, you know, just because I'm successful, I don't have to like, I don't know, like somehow I'm lesser of a Canadian than you. No. You know, if you're in the country, you're in fairly, you can buy a
Yeah.
house, and that's the way it is.
I mean, if you look at like, so if you go to Porsche dealerships in Toronto,
Yeah.
their signage is in Cantonese, I think,
Oh,
as
okay,
well,
okay, okay.
because they know that that's a market. It's not English and French.
Yeah.
It's English
yeah.
and like Cantonese or whatever,
Yeah,
Mandarin
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, you cater to people who
Yeah.
are, you know, have
Yeah.
money or successful immigrants. So that's that. So you're saying, so I guess what we're saying is, although the data doesn't really prove that this is an issue, it could be at the margin for sure, a bit of a driver of real estate prices.
I definitely think it's a driver.
Yeah.
Definitely think. Because like if you look at numbers, okay, so according to these stats,
Yeah.
2019, 2020, you had 84 immigrants coming into Canada. But if
Yeah.
you look at the Ontario numbers, 127, what is that? Like roughly, it's almost half, man. Oh, well, at least a third,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And all of that, when you say Ontario, it's pretty much Toronto.
Correct.
And if you put that 127,000 in relation to Toronto's population,
Yeah.
we're looking at more than 1%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
now, if you're
yeah.
looking at like 2, 3, 5%, that's a huge dent, man.
Yeah, it makes a difference. It makes a
huge
difference. Got it. Okay. So the other question I had, so number 3 was, let's talk about the incentives in the real estate market. And what I mean by incentives are, you know, the way agents are compensated, the way the city makes its money off land transfer and property taxes, et cetera, et cetera. Like, my personal view on a lot of this is agents in general, and I know this might be tricky for you because you work in the profession, but agents in general, let's be honest, their commission is dependent on the price of a home.
Yeah.
They have every incentive that the price goes higher
Yeah.
so they can make more money through their commission, right?
Yeah.
The city wants higher prices too, to a certain extent, indirectly speaking, because they charge land transfer taxes. So whenever a home transacts at a higher price, they get more tax revenue. So them too. The other thing as well, which is some RE/MAX agents recently brought this up in a Globe and Mail article, is this whole thing about blind bidding around housing. You know, you look at the stock market, it's very transparent. You want to know the share price of Google, you look it up, that's the share price of Google.
Yep.
It's never such that it's blind bidding. When an agent comes to you and says, oh, dude, there are 25 offers. You sure you want to go in with that number?
Yeah.
There are 25 offers. And then they're like stupidly causing these bidding wars by telling their clients there are 25 offers.
Yeah. So here's...
So I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at the wall
And-
here,
and-
but
yeah.
just incentives in
No,
general.
I agree this is an important topic.
The
to talk
incentives are there to push
about.
prices up, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I think now I'm not going to be... I work with a lot of realtors. There's a lot of great realtors out there. So I'm not really kind of trying to say all realtors are bad or anything like that, right? And nor am I saying that the industry is... I don't know. I'm not trying to say there's any kind of, I guess, false play or anything like that. But there are certain things that do concern me, right? Pushing their prices up by an agent. If you're a seller's agent, that's kind of your job, right? You're trying to get the most. I'm going to hire the guy who's going to get me the most money for my house.
Correct.
That's
Agreed.
it, right? Now, the bidding stuff is definitely something from a seller's side. Yeah, I want to create murky waters and don't know what's going on, and try to push up the prices. I don't think that's conducive in the long run for a society. I don't think people are like, oh my God, well, like, you know, you can have like the number of bids. I think there should be transparency. Not only transparency in the bidding side of it, dude. We don't even have transparency in the historical prices of real estate. Like we don't have a normal person cannot go in and try to find out, okay, what is the historical transfer on a price? Like what's the MLS data on that? There was one guy who I know, I can't say anything about who it is, but like there wasn't a realtor, an individual who had that I know of that started like a website and it gave you historical data. It was shut down by the real estate board just because they're like, well, this goes against our policies, right? And like the thing is the position that you hear is, well, we're protecting the clients by hiding the prices. It's in their best interest. Well, no, like in the States, everything is transparent. You should be able to go in and you should look at like when this house was sold, how much it was sold. You're not going in blind, right?
They've released this, no? Now?
I don't think they have.
Okay.
Like there's a bunch of like red tape around it where under certain circumstances it could be released, but it's not like it's like data. Like effectively, it's still very difficult or near impossible for a person to kind of on their own do research and find the pricing of a house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it monopolizes it so that like, okay, you have to use a realtor. You have to use even when you're buying. Like I feel like, yeah, realtors should not have a, I guess, moat around the industry. If you're a good realtor, there's definite value in having a realtor negotiate an offer on your behalf, submit an offer on your behalf, or review offers with you. Definite value there. But that value should not be, or extra value or value should not be, I guess, emphasized by just barriers in the industry that prevent free flow of information, right? That should always be there. And then you have like the best people rise.
Yeah. Interesting. The one thing I wanted to say on this topic as well, just the incentives. It's interesting, the government as well, because I did mention that, the land transfer tax. The government they're in a tough position as well, and they're elected officials, so they do what's politically correct, right? They look at what it takes for them to get elected into office. A lot of it tends to be people are pissed off about housing. They want policies to control the house prices, taxes, regulation, blah, blah, blah. The government will definitely implement it, but the government is not stupid. They know that this is an incredible source of income for the government too, right? Just land transfer taxes, etc. So yes, they want to mitigate higher prices and they want to put a lid on it and try to control it. But let's be honest, it pays for a lot of programs too, right? So if they were to control it way too much, right?
But too much. But if you have the volume of houses being sold go up without the price, you could still make more money.
True. Yeah,
right? Or if it's just flipped more often.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not going to be like once the prices hit, I'm thinking, man, they got to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? And once it stops there, and if it's not going, if it's not correlating with just income levels, it's going to go somewhere and it's going to plateau. And at that point, your income streams into the government for tax revenue is not the same. Yep. So you have like a lot of money coming in a certain amount of years, and then it just kind of dries off. You want to kind of level that out too, because it helps the government and people, and it's good for growth, everything. That's my argument towards it.
Got it.
But like for a lot of people, like it's like, oh no, we don't know. It could just keep going up. Whatever.
Yeah. True.
This is gonna be constant forever until it's not.
That's so true. Okay, so let's move on. We'll move it on. And you know what? Maybe we'll come back to some of these topics to dive in a bit more detail, but I did want to sort of cover the sort of a high-level overview of a bunch of things that are going on in the market. So let's talk about some second-order effects. And by second-order effects, I mean, what is the implication of such a frothy real estate market just on society in general? And I can really come up with two things, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this too. Two things. So number one, prices are really high, so therefore people are navigating towards smaller homes, right? Because that's what they can afford. They can't afford a detached home. They're going to make do with a townhome with lesser space because that's what they can afford. Or a condo, yeah. So just like in Europe, house prices, detached homes became so expensive that people now raise an entire family in a condo. Like Hong Kong as well is another one. Yeah. Small condos. It's not New York style. It's smaller condos, but that's where you have a family. That's one. Number two is also just family structure in general. People are now having less kids because you're like, my mortgage payment is so expensive. I was thinking of having 3 kids. I'm just going to have 2 because it's just too tight. And yeah, families becoming smaller and smaller. So the birth rate actually goes down, right?
I mean, it's also, you stay at home for longer to save more money if you want to move out.
Adult children living with their parents.
And then you have like just people like, just divvying up the house that they have and trying to make, use of that so that one family gets one floor, the other family gets another floor type of deal. So, and siblings dividing it up. And you see a lot of that happening as well. Just because you got to afford it. And I think that also then in turn pushes up the prices as well. Right?
Like multi-generational families, buying a multi-generational family, like a big home together.
Well, I mean, if you buy big, like you don't have to buy a big home. Even if I buy something for 2,000 square feet, right? And now people are used to living on one floor each, and I can rent it out for more money, right? And then it just increases the price of the house overall.
Right.
Even though the rent that each floor is making for that family may be more affordable than buying the house, right? But now you've got like 3 families living in the same home. That's something I do think that it's going to be pushing up prices as well. I think there's just a lot of push that is not being, and I'll get to it in a second, but there's a lot of push without any kind of restraints. Now, I did hear that June 1st, the qualifying rate is going up to like the 5.25% or something. Mm-hmm. So you have to qualify 5.25% before you buy it. But I think, I don't know, I feel like, is that going to hamper anything? Is it Canadians buying the house?
Yeah.
Or is it for an investment? I don't know. I have no idea.
Interesting. All right, so to wrap it all up, this discussion and the previous podcast, where do we go from here? Will there be a crash? Will there be a moderate slowdown in prices? Like you said, they're eventually something's got to give. It's got to slow down.
Yeah.
Or will it just keep going up? What do you think?
I think a little bit of everything. I think I think that we're due for a correction.
Okay, so what does that mean? Like a severe correction, or just a moderate?
Just going down. Like Canadians need to shed off debt.
Right.
Right.
You think it'll be healthy?
It'll if the government allows it.
Yes, I have a feeling where it's going to be bailed out.
It's going to be bailed out, definitely.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's going to be money printed out, and they're just going to unless like we're forced with, I don't know, just the currency going to nowhere, right? The thing is, if they print it off, inflation is going to hit, and our buying power goes down definitely. But they want the nominal value of the house to remain the same, just to keep a lot of, I guess, banks and a lot of businesses viable.
I think if it's a crash scenario and it's a severe one, you will see the mother of all bailouts. Because I will tell you, the government created sort of this problem. Let's be honest. They sort of did. They said this was one of the unintended consequences of low interest rates. But if there's a severe crash, there will be a massive bailout, massive of epic proportions. And we will be paying this money, this whatever bailout, for years to come, generations, tax rates. It's going to be a disaster. The problem is already too big to fail. Housing is too big to fail. It's too big to fail. And I don't know, like people should realize this. And I know it's a little bit controversial, but it's absolutely true in my mind.
I don't think generationally we'd be paying it off. I think this is how the empires rise and fall.
Okay, whoa.
That's like it's like the credibility of your currency is everything.
It really is. Yeah. It really is.
So if that goes,
we're saying a lot of crazy stuff right now. But no, it's very possible. Yeah. I would hope that the best outcome out of all of this is sort of a gradual peaking and sort of slowing down and then leveling off. You know, maybe there was some sort of a correction that had to be made because of low interest rates, immigration, short supply. Yeah, right. There are a lot of fundamental things. Low interest rates, immigration, short supply. There are a multitude of factors. There's not one thing you can just point at. There are a variety of factors. Human behavior is complex. Buying a house is irrational. So it's not a very sort of logical thing. Yeah. We'll see where it goes. Yeah. We'll see where it goes. All right. That's our take on Canadian housing over 2 episodes. Hope you like this, about us just talking about current topics. And we'll see. We might revisit some of these topics. It's always exciting and lots to talk about.
Definitely has a lot to talk about.
All right. See you guys on the next episode.
Take care, guys.
Take care.